Tonight I'm bringing you a story you won't forget, a story that still chills me to the bone. I spent a night in Cranbrook Mental Hospital. Abandoned. Alone. It all started as a dare. A stupid, reckless dare from friends. They knew about my fascination with the paranormal. They knew about Cranbrook, the stories, the legends. They pushed me to do it, so I did. Packed my camera bag, charged my flashlight, ignored the knot of dread twisting in my stomach. This is the story of the night I stared fear in the face, and fear blinked first. Cranbrook Mental Hospital, a behemoth of decay, looming against the twilight sky, a graveyard of forgotten souls, or so they say. I parked a safe distance away. Just being near it sent shivers down my spine. The air grew colder as I approached. The smell hit me first, stale, musty, tinged with something metallic. The entry doors yawned open, inviting me into the darkness. I stepped inside, my heart pounding like a drum. The air inside was thick with dust. Silence hung heavy, broken only by the creak of the floorboards beneath my feet. Each step I took echoed through the desolate halls, amplified by the silence. Dust caked every surface. Medical charts lay scattered on the floor, a testament to the lives once lived and lost within these walls. A chill ran down my spine. This place was a tomb. I could feel it in my bones. The silence was deafening, oppressive, like the building itself was holding its breath, watching me. I set up my camera, my movements jerky and nervous. My voice, when I spoke, sounded alien in the stillness. "Okay," I whispered, my breath catching in my throat. "Let's do this." Little did I know the silence was a prelude, a terrifying silence before the storm. My first goal was simple: find the administrative wing. According to local lore, that's where most of the paranormal activity centered, the heart of the hospital, the source of its darkness. The air grew colder as I descended deeper. Each hallway seemed to stretch endlessly, the flickering beam of my flashlight doing little to pierce the oppressive gloom. I could have sworn I saw shadows moving at the edge of the light. After what felt like an eternity, I found it. The administrative wing. The sign was barely visible, the paint peeling like scabs on old wounds. A shiver ran down my spine. The first thing that struck me was the wheelchair, just sitting there, in the middle of the room, as if someone had just gotten up and walked away. The air was heavy, thick with dust and the lingering scent of decay. Medical charts lay scattered across the floor, charts with names, dates, diagnoses, lives lived and lost within these walls. A cold dread settled in my stomach. I was not alone. The hair on the back of my neck prickled. Someone had been here recently, or maybe something. The silence was broken only by the frantic thumping of my own heart. I left the administration wing quickly, my breath catching in my throat. As I moved through the darkened corridors, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The silence was almost unbearable, and then I heard it. The distinct sound of footsteps. Heavy, deliberate footsteps echoing from the far end of the hallway. I froze, my blood turning to ice. I was the only living soul in this forsaken place. There shouldn't have been anyone else. But the footsteps continued, slow and steady, drawing nearer. My heart pounded in my chest as I pressed myself against the wall. My flashlight clutched like a lifeline. The footsteps grew louder, closer. I held my breath, praying whatever was making them wouldn't find me. And then, just as suddenly as they began, the footsteps stopped. Silence descended once more, heavy and suffocating. I cautiously peered around the corner, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. For a fleeting moment, I thought I saw something. A flicker of movement at the edge of the light, a tall, shadowy figure gone as quickly as it appeared. I stumbled back, my heart racing, my mind, desperate for a rational explanation, offered nothing but the chilling reality. I was not alone. Whatever or whoever was in this hospital with me was toying with me. The air grew colder still. A low, mournful sound echoed through the hallway. At first I thought it was the wind whistling through the broken windows, but as I listened closer I realized it was something else entirely. Whispers. Faint, ethereal whispers, carried on the stale air. I couldn't make out the words, but the tones sent chills down my spine. They were filled with sadness, despair, and something else. Something darker. Something sinister. The whispers seemed to be leading me somewhere. I followed the sound, my flashlight beam dancing across the walls. The air grew colder, the metallic scent stronger. I rounded a corner and stopped dead in my tracks. The operating room. It was unmistakable. The flickering beam of my flashlight illuminated a rusty operating table, stained a dark, ominous color. Surgical tools lay scattered around it, as if the doctors had just stepped away for a moment. The whispers intensified, swirling around me like a vortex of despair. I could almost feel the presence of the souls who had perished on that table. Their pain, their fear, their anguish. I had to get out of there. I turned to leave, but a sudden wave of dizziness washed over me. The whispers grew louder, morphing into guttural screams. The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. I stumbled back, catching myself on the doorframe. The screams faded, replaced once more by the mournful whispers. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. The room was spinning. I pressed my hand against the wall, searching for support. The moment my fingers touched the cold plaster, a jolt shot through my body. It was like touching ice, but 1,000 times more intense. A cold spot. Every hair on my body stood on end. I knew what it meant. A place where the veil between the living and the dead was thin. A place where spirits could cross over. I backed away from the operating room, my heart pounding in my chest. The whispers followed me, their mournful cries echoing through the empty corridors. I had to get out of this hospital. Now! As I stumbled down the hallway, my flashlight beam caught a fleeting glimpse of something in the doorway ahead. A tall, shadowy figure, its form barely discernible in the darkness. It was just standing there, watching me. I froze, my blood turning to ice. The whispers intensified, swirling around me like a malevolent wind. The figure remained motionless, its presence exuding an aura of pure dread. I couldn't stay there, not with that thing watching me. I turned and ran, my flashlight beam bouncing wildly off the walls. The whispers chased after me, their mournful cries turning into shrieks of rage. As I fled down the hallway, a blood-curdling scream pierced the silence. It was a sound of pure terror, filled with a raw, primal fear that seemed to echo through the very foundation of the hospital. I didn't dare look back. I knew that scream could only mean one thing. Whatever was in this hospital with me, it was no longer content to simply watch from the shadows. It was hunting me. I ducked behind a door, my chest heaving. The scream echoed through the hospital, bouncing off the walls and multiplying into a chorus of terror. I pressed my back against the cold metal, trying to control my breathing. I peeked cautiously out into the hallway. It was empty. But the air was thick with tension, a palpable sense of dread that clung to me like a shroud. I could feel it watching me, even in the darkness. My gaze fell on a medical cart standing in the middle of the hallway, and that's when I saw it. The wheels were turning, slowly at first, then faster and faster, as if someone or something was pushing it towards me. The cart rattled down the hallway, picking up speed with each passing second. Its metallic clang echoed through the desolate halls, a terrifying harbinger of my impending doom. Panic seized me. My mind screamed at me to move, to run, but my feet felt rooted to the spot. I threw myself against the wall, my back scraping against the rough brick. The cart screeched to a halt just inches from me, its metal frame cold and menacing in the dim light. I could feel the coldness emanating from it, seeping into my skin, chilling me to the bone. My flashlight beam danced across the cart's surface, illuminating its gruesome cargo. Rusty surgical instruments lay scattered amid stained bandages and empty medicine bottles. A broken vial, filled with a murky, viscous fluid, rolled precariously near the edge. The stench of decay and disinfectant filled my nostrils, suffocating me. A low growl vibrated through the air, emanating from the shadows at the end of the hallway. It wasn't a sound any human could make. It was guttural, primal, filled with an ancient rage that sent shivers down my spine. The whispers returned, louder this time, more insistent. They swirled around me, their icy breath licking at my ears. I could almost make out words now, fragments of sentences filled with pain, anger, and a chilling desperation. "Get out!" the voice rasped, each word a struggle. "This is my domain!" A face materialized in the darkness, its features twisted in a grotesque mockery of a human countenance, its eyes, glowing with an unnatural light, bored into my soul. The entity's voice, raspy and chilling, seeped into my mind, weaving a tapestry of horror and despair. Images flashed before my eyes, a padded cell, a straitjacket, a syringe filled with an unknown liquid, a doctor with a cruel smile. I was flooded with a torrent of emotions, none of them my own. Fear, anguish, hopelessness, a bone-deep despair that threatened to consume me. I understood now. This place, these spirits, they weren't just trapped here. They were tormented. The entity's voice became a guttural scream, echoing the torment of the souls trapped within the hospital walls. My own fear was dwarfed by the overwhelming wave of agony that washed over me. This place was a breeding ground for madness, and I was caught in its grip. The voice subsided, leaving behind a ringing silence that was somehow more terrifying than the cacophony that preceded it. I stumbled back, my hand connecting with something cold and hard. It was a wall. I was trapped. My flashlight beam flickered, casting dancing shadows across the floor. And that's when I saw it. Scrawled across the dusty floor in a substance that looked horrifyingly like dried blood. A plea, "Help me." The message wasn't written in blood, it was rust, flaking off from the pipes above, but the message was clear. These souls, these tormented beings, they wanted my help, but how could I, a single living soul, possibly help them? A blood-curdling scream ripped through the silence, echoing through the desolate corridors. It wasn't the entity's voice this time, it was human. Filled with terror, and it was getting closer. Movement flickered at the edge of my vision. A shadowy figure, barely discernible in the dim light, darted down a side hallway. I was no longer alone in this haunted labyrinth. Someone, or something, was now hunting us both. Panic surged through me, drowning out the whispers, the fear, the despair. There was only one thought in my mind: escape. I had to get out of this hospital, now. I turned and ran, my footsteps echoing in the silence, each one a prayer for survival. I sprinted blindly through the darkened corridors, my lungs burning, legs screaming for respite. The screams echoed behind me, spurring me forward. Each turn, every shadow seemed to whisper promises of escape, only to lead to another dead end. Then I saw it, a stairwell. A way out of this nightmare. I didn't hesitate. I scrambled up the steps, two at a time, my flashlight beam bouncing erratically, barely illuminating the path ahead. The air grew colder, heavier as I ascended. The metallic tang of blood mingled with the musty odor of decay. My heart pounded against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat urging me upwards. The screams were fading now, replaced by a chilling silence that pressed down on me like a physical weight. I burst through the doorway at the top of the stairs, hope surging through me. But it was a cruel trick. A dead end. A heavy metal door, rusted shut, blocked my path. It was cold, unyielding, a finality that stole my breath. Desperation clawed at me. I threw my weight against the door again and again, but it wouldn't budge. It was as if the building itself was conspiring against me, holding me captive in its web of terror. The screams returned, closer this time, laced with a new urgency. They were hunting me, and now, I was trapped. The weight of my situation crashed down on me. This was it. This was how it ended. Then I heard it. A faint sound, barely audible above the pounding of my own heart. A child's laughter. It echoed through the stairwell, chillingly out of place in this tomb of despair. My blood ran cold. I followed the sound, drawn by a morbid curiosity I couldn't explain. It led me down a narrow hallway, past peeling paint and flickering lights, to a door left slightly ajar. The laughter was coming from inside. I pushed the door open slowly, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. It was the children's ward. Small beds lined the walls, each one neatly made as if waiting for their occupants to return. Toys lay scattered on the floor, frozen in time. And in the center of the room, a rocking horse swayed gently back and forth, as if propelled by an unseen hand. A chill wind swept through the room, swirling the dust into miniature tornadoes. The laughter stopped abruptly, replaced by a silence so profound it felt like a physical presence. And then, I saw it. In the shadows at the end of the hallway, a small, childlike figure stood bathed in the faint moonlight filtering through a grimy window. Its eyes, wide and unblinking, glowed with an unnatural light, piercing the darkness like miniature beacons. Terror warred with pity in my chest. This child, this lost soul, was no threat. It was a victim, just like the others, trapped within these cursed walls. But what could I do? How could I possibly help it? A thunderous crash echoed behind me, jolting me from my thoughts. The metal door at the top of the stairs buckled inward, ripped from its hinges by a force of unimaginable rage. A monstrous silhouette filled the doorway, backlit by a blinding light that seemed to emanate from within. The screams returned, louder than ever, a chorus of anguish and fury that seemed to shake the very foundation of the hospital. I was trapped, caught between the desperate pleas of lost souls and the wrath of whatever had just broken free. The entity advanced, its form shifting and swirling in the blinding light, a horrifying kaleidoscope of anguish and despair. I closed my eyes, bracing myself for the inevitable. There was nowhere left to run, no escape from this nightmare. The details are a blur, a cacophony of screams, blinding light, and then silence. I woke up on the dew-covered grass outside the hospital. The rising sun felt like a slap in the face. Real, solid. My camera was gone. My flashlight smashed. The only evidence of that night, the lingering chill in my bones and the nightmares that haunted my sleep. Cranbrook still stands, a testament to suffering and madness. Do I regret that night? Every single day. Some doors are meant to stay closed, some lines never crossed.